They said no maid ever lasted in that house. Not one. The gate stood tall, the villa majestic. But inside, it was a battlefield. At the center of it was Madame Selina. Elegant, graceful, and deadly with her words. She slapped without warning. She yelled without mercy. Her insults cut deeper than a blade. She had driven out 8 maids in just 6 months. Some fled in tears, some slipped away at dawn. One leapt over the back fence without her sandals. Then came Lindiwe, brown-skinned, quiet, carrying nothing but a faded tote bag and the fire in her eyes. She wasn't there to run. She wasn't there to please. She had a sick son, nothing left to lose. And she carried a weapon Madame Selina had never faced before. What Lindiwe did in that house didn't just change her life, it broke the unbreakable Madame Selina. The villa on Queen Adelaide Crescent in Cape Town was the kind of place people slowed down to admire. A towering bronze gate, a spotless driveway, cars so polished they caught the sun like mirrors. But past that perfect exterior, the air inside was heavy. The staff moved like shadows. The cleaner avoided eye contact. Even Mama Thondi, the chef who had once cooked for ministers, stepped carefully, as though afraid to disturb the silence. That silence had a source. Madam Selina Mwamba. Some called her Madam Ice, others Madam Perfection. At 35, she looked like she had stepped out of a luxury magazine. Tall, fair-skinned, always dressed as though the red carpet might roll out at any moment. Her perfume lingered long after she left a room. Her words even longer. She didn't just give orders, she commanded. She didn't just discipline, she struck, either with a slap or a sentence sharp enough to leave invisible scars. In that house, her opinion was law. In just half a year, 8 maids had left through the same bronze gate. Some weeping, some in silence, one without her shoes. The house wasn't the problem. The work wasn't the problem. She was. Madame Selina Mwamba. She was Mr. Bonele Mwamba's second wife. His first had died years ago, leaving a void in the villa that had never truly been filled. Mr. Mwamba was a man of power, in his late 50s, with silver streaks in his hair, 3 successful shipping companies, and properties scattered across the country. People spoke his name with respect everywhere. But what they whispered about most were the maids, until Lindiwe arrived. Nobody welcomed her. Nobody asked her name. The housekeeper simply pointed to a mop and muttered, "Start with the glass floors. Madam is coming downstairs." Lindiwe didn't argue. She tied her scarf, picked up the mop, and began to work. She had one reason for being there. Her son, Temba, in and out of the hospital with a heart condition. The bills were climbing, threatening to drown her. She whispered to herself, "Just endure it. Even if they insult you, endure it. 3 months, that's all for Temba." She was still wiping the center rug when she heard it. Click, clack, click, clack. Heels. Sharp ones. Then silence. Lindiwe looked up. There she was. Madame Selina, standing at the top of the stairs in a silk emerald robe, holding a cup of rooibos tea like she owned the world. She looked Lindiwe up and down, then at the mop, then at the water bucket beside her, and, without saying a word, she tipped the bucket over. The water splashed across the clean tiles. Lindiwe stepped back quickly. Selina came closer, eyes cold. "This is the second time this week someone blocks my walkway. I'm not in the mood. Clean it again." Lindiwe didn't speak. She bent down and began to mop. Her slippers soaked, but her hands steady. From the hallway, the housekeeper whispered under her breath, "She won't last. She looks too soft." But what nobody knew was this. Lindiwe had buried her pride long ago. She had cleaned homes where they treated her worse. She had begged in hospital corridors for her son's life. She wasn't soft. She was silent fire. The next morning, Lindiwe woke before 5 a.m. She swept the front yard, cleaned the glass doors, and mopped the sitting room again, this time with less water, no splash, no mistakes. By 6:30 a.m., she was in the kitchen washing dishes beside Mama Thondi. "You're up early," Mama Thondi said, surprised. "I'm just trying to do my work," Lindiwe smiled gently. "Be careful. This house, it's not about waking early. It's about surviving Madame's mouth." Right on cue, they heard the controlled, measured steps of slippers approaching. Madame Selina entered the kitchen in her robe, phone in hand. "Where's my lemon water?" she demanded. Mama Thondi started to answer, but Selina's gaze moved to Lindiwe. "Room temperature. Not cold, not warm. Perfect. Do you understand?" "Yes, Ma." "Because if I take one sip and my throat feels like it entered a sauna, you'll regret your life." Lindiwe simply nodded, prepared the drink carefully, and carried it upstairs. She knocked gently. Inside, the room gleamed. Gold curtains, a row of perfume bottles on the dresser, a small white poodle on the bed. She placed the tray beside her, without a word. Selina took a sip, paused, then smirked. "You're lucky," she said. As Lindiwe turned to leave, Selina added, "There's a stain on the bathroom sink. I hate stains." Lindiwe cleaned it quietly, until her elbow brushed a perfume bottle. She caught it in time, but Selina appeared in the doorway and slapped her. "You're clumsy," she said coldly. Lindiwe bowed her head. "I'm sorry, Ma." Her hands trembled, but her spirit stayed steady. By the end of that first week, Lindiwe had been shouted at, insulted twice, and slapped once. Yet, she stayed. The rest of the staff began watching her the way people watch a candle in the wind, half expecting it to go out at any moment. But instead of dimming, Lindiwe worked harder. She never answered back. She kept her eyes down, but her ears open. She learned Madam Selina's rhythms, what time she preferred tea, how she liked her towels folded, the exact shade of shine she wanted on her marble floors. And she learned something else. Selina was not cruel at random. She was cruel with precision. One evening, Selina returned from a charity gala in a sapphire dress, face radiant from the flash of cameras. She dropped her handbag on the floor and called out, "Lindiwe." Lindiwe appeared almost instantly. "Take these shoes," Selina said, pointing to her stilettos, "and don't scratch them. They cost more than your life." "Yes, Ma." She carried the shoes to the wardrobe, careful with each step. The wardrobe room was breathtaking. Rows of dresses in silk and chiffon, dozens of handbags lined like soldiers, and shoes in every color. As Lindiwe placed the stilettos back in their spot, she caught sight of a photo on the shelf. Mr. Mwamba with a different woman, smiling warmly, arm around her shoulders. The woman was holding a little girl, no more than 5 years old. It wasn't Selina. And from the dust on the frame, it hadn't been touched in years. Before she could think too much about it, Selina's voice echoed down the hall. "Lindiwe!" She hurried back, head low. That night, as she lay on her thin mattress in the servants' quarters, Lindiwe thought of Themba's hospital bed. She thought of the bill she still hadn't paid, and she thought of Selina. Beautiful, cold, but with something unspoken in her eyes whenever her husband's name came up. Weeks passed. Selina remained sharp, but she began to notice something about this maid. She never argued. She never complained. She remembered every instruction, even the petty ones. She kept the lemon water at perfect temperature. She arranged Selina's jewelry by metal type without being told. One morning, As Selina prepared for a meeting, she found her silk blouse pressed and laid out with matching earrings, something no other maid had done. She narrowed her eyes at Lindiwe. "Why are you trying to impress me?" "I'm not, Ma. I'm just doing my work." Selina said nothing, but for the first time, she didn't add an insult. Then came the day everything changed. It was late afternoon. The sun was dipping low, casting a golden glow through the villa windows. Mr. Mwamba was out of town. Selina had just finished a phone call when she heard hurried footsteps. Mama Thondi burst into the lounge, breathless. "Lindiwe's son is in the hospital. It's bad." Selina frowned. "What son?" "The little boy she's been working for. Heart problem." Lindiwe was already at the gate with bag in hand, tears streaking her cheeks. She had just enough for a taxi to the public hospital. Selina stood there for a moment, watching her go. Something tugged at her chest. She picked up her phone, called her driver, and said, "Follow her." At the hospital, Lindiwe sat on a hard bench outside the emergency ward, hands clasped, whispering prayers. Themba was inside, his breathing shallow. She didn't notice the sound of heels until Selina's perfume reached her. Lindiwe looked up stunned. "Ma?" Selina didn't answer. She simply walked to the receptionist, pulled out her platinum card, and said, "Transfer the boy to St. Augustine's private. Now." The nurse blinked. "That's the most expensive." "I said now." Within an hour, Themba was in a private room surrounded by doctors in white coats. Lindiwe stood in the corner, still in disbelief. Why would you do this?" she whispered. Selina looked at her for a long moment. Then she said quietly, "Because once I lost someone I loved to a hospital queue." From that day, everything shifted. Selina still gave orders, but the sharp edge in her voice softened. She began asking Lindiwe about Themba. She even visited once, bringing a teddy bear that cost more than Lindiwe's monthly salary. 3 months later, Themba was strong enough to run down the hospital corridor. Lindiwe returned to work with tears in her eyes and gratitude she couldn't put into words. One evening, Selina called her into the study. "I'm letting the housekeeper go. I want you to take her place. Higher pay, better quarters. You've earned it." Lindiwe's hands trembled. "Thank you, Ma." Selina gave a rare smile. "Don't thank me. You stayed when everyone else ran. You taught me something I didn't know I needed to learn. Patience." And so, the villa on Queen Adelaide Crescent finally had a maid who stayed, not because she was unafraid of Madam Selina, but because she had melted the ice around her heart. And for Selina, the woman no maid could last with, there would always be one exception. The end.